Friends, welcome to the Meaningless Podcast. It's a podcast where me, Pastor Tim, my co-host here, Ian, we look and we see all the oppression taking place under the sun. I've never explained where we get our little bits that we start the show from, and I think maybe I'll just comment on that today. Anytime that you hear that little intro, and you've probably noticed it's different, I'm just taking a verse from whatever we're going to be reading, whatever we're focusing on in the Bible. So that's Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verse 1 today. We're in Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Thanks for listening through these first three chapters of Ecclesiastes.
Yeah, thank you for
with us.
Thanks for this is number 4 that we've been doing, so we're in chapter 4. Thanks for listening to all these. Hopefully we'd like to, have them come out every Thursday, and just, something, a little guide. Maybe, you sit down with your Bible and read this, or, you're out and about, whether you're working out or you're around the house in the kitchen or, taking a shower, doing whatever, because I'm a millennial, so I kind of understand that generation. Like, you don't sit down to do something. I like to go to the movies because it's an event. Like, you go to a place and you do a specific thing, but now we're so kind of hyper-stimulated that, a lot of people just listen to the podcast while they're doing something. Mm-hmm. So that's good, but I would hope that, ideally, you kind of pick up on some of the passages we talk about, go back, look at them, kind of meditate on them. And I don't mean meditate like a monk, you don't got to do the cross-legged thing, or just kind of think about it, in like a quiet place. Yeah,
in a biblical way, the word meditate, the Hebrew, if you ever see the word meditate in the Old Testament, the word there is, and I forget what the actual Hebrew word is, but it's the same word that would be used of like a predator animal chewing on the bones of its prey to get all the marrow out, and so
to marinate.
Yeah. But the idea that you're just really sitting with something and wanting to get everything you can out of it. So, biblical sense, meditation is not trying to empty myself. It's me wanting to be filled to the last drop with the goodness of the Word of God. And so, as you listen to our comments here on Ecclesiastes chapter 4 today, go ahead reading Ecclesiastes 4 alongside by yourself. Chew on these words, like suck them dry, like that lion chewing on a gazelle femur or something.
Yeah, or the raccoon that likes to get in my garbage and go after the chicken bones. He's kind of a gentleman, though. He leaves like a little pile. Even though he knocks the garbage over, he doesn't spread the garbage anywhere else. But there's just a pile of bones, and all the ends are bit off and sucked dry. Guy. So, he's meditating.
What a thoughtful guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, at least he's getting fed. So you want to take a look at this? Do you want to jump into the reading right away, or do you have some impressions that really stood out to you? Or I kind of feel like if I started talking about it, I feel like I would start. We should probably read it first.
Let's read it.
Okay.
Ian, I think it's your turn this week to read.
Sure.
Go on ahead.
Pleasure.
Friends, we're reading Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Ian and I are reading from the New International Version.
Okay.
If you've got a New International Version Bible at home, or you've got a different translation, whatever it is, we're in Ecclesiastes chapter 4.
Good. So the headline for this one, for the first part, we have oppression, toil, and friendlessness. And for the second half, we have advancement is meaningless. So let's take a look. Again, I looked and saw that oppression that was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they had no comforter. Power was on the side of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. And I declared that the dead, who had already died, are happier than the living, who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been, who has not seen the evil that is done under the sun. And I saw that all labor and all achievement spring from man's envy of his neighbor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. The fool folds his hands and ruins himself. Better one handful with tranquility, and 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For who am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. but pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king, who no longer knows how to take warning. The youth may have come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his kingdom. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. There was no end to all the people who were before him, but those who came later were not pleased with the successor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind.
That's Ecclesiastes chapter 4. As Ian was reading there, we both come here with notes prepped up, but to be honest too, as we sit and just read, often things occur to me, to Ian too, I think. And so something that occurred to me was these words that start the chapter. Solomon says, "Again I looked and saw." Ecclesiastes, especially in the early chapters, frames itself as a collection of Solomon's own observations about life. He sees things and he thinks about things and he puts down his reflections. Earlier spots where we see him talking about, I saw something, are chapter 1, verse 14, 2:11, 2:24, 3:10, and 3:22. And these, again, are all spots where he sees something out in the world, and it strikes him, and he finds it worth meditating on in that way that we were talking about, chewing on and thinking about, what am I learning here? What am I learning about human nature and about this world that we live in? And what Solomon has previously focused on is things like human mortality. He sees that people all die, and he focuses on the futility of trying to guarantee that your work will last. And here he says the thing that he's focused on is oppression. All the oppression that takes place under the sun.
Yeah, kind of stay in that vein where you're talking about the word oppression. So we have this kind of dynamic here. And you see this all throughout Ecclesiastes, like we had in the beginning, where we're talking about kind of the natural cycles of nature, whether it was the sun, the sun rising and setting and then running back to where it rises. Or in 3, where we're talking, like a time to die, a time to live, time to be born, that kind of, duality cycle of nature. With the language here, and I checked the Hebrew because, I always love to kind of get a little background, because as somebody who, speaks another language and translates, it's really important to kind of look at what they're saying, because oftentimes it's maybe similar to what they're saying, but, there's different methods, word for word, thought for thought, so it all depends. But here we have, these kind of 4 lines. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Power was on the side of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. Now we have this kind of dynamic here right away, right? This juxtaposition of the oppressed and the oppressors, right? So somebody's doing something, somebody's having something done to them. So the oppressed have the tears, and the oppressors have the power. So the power, and that use of the power is what is creating this oppressed relationship. Now when you look at the Hebrew, you have this repeating here on the second lines, and they have no comforter. Now, when we're coming over in the car, we had this kind of little interesting kind of divergence on how we read this, because the Hebrew is not really specific as to who the second they is in that 4th line there when they say they have no comfort. Now, Pastor, I remember you saying something like you thought that it was referring to the oppressors have comfort, like this is like nailing in, if you will, since we're Lutherans.
Yeah.
Hammering home.
Yeah, so the idea here in the second half of verse 1, it's those lines that Ian read. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Power was on the side of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. In the second portion, the second time that and they have no comforters said there, who is the they? Is it the oppressed, and it's doubling down on the fact that they don't have any comforter? Or is it pointing out that the oppressors also have no comforter?
Yeah, I kind of went with that second one where it was like, neither of them have comfort. And this ties back to, what we were saying, in some of the previous chapters as well, as both the fool and the wise man have the same fate. So in the end, you're going to die. It's meaningless. It's futile. It's vanity. Go back to the word havel, right? Breath, vapor, kind of vanity meaning from the Hebrew from the first chapter that we were doing. I love how that you could look at it like these two different ways. That it's not that specific. Because to me, maybe that shows a little bit more about myself. But I think it's important to establish that dynamic of somebody, the oppressor and pressure dynamic, because then it sets up, like you said, like I said before, with the fool and the wise man too, because it's showing that no matter what our station in life or what we try to achieve, and this is kind of what we go into later about human striving is futile, right, and leads to despair.
Okay, so it's recording.
All right, cool. 3. Oh. Excuse me.
Go for a countdown.
Clear my throat. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, so, ultimately what's important with this kind of dynamic that we have here is that ultimately it leads to vanity. It's a chasing after the wind, right? There's just, it's a futility to it.
Yeah. Whether you are, and this isn't, Solomon also writes the book of Proverbs. And there are times in Proverbs where he just says he very bluntly assesses the state of the world without necessarily advocating for a certain action. So there's times in the book of Proverbs, for instance, where he'll say things like, a bribe is very effective. I'm paraphrasing some of the Proverbs. A bribe is a very effective thing, is something that Solomon says in the book of Proverbs. And he just leaves it at that.
Yeah.
And if you are trying to derive too much of a didactic element there, you might think, well, is the Bible telling me that I should bribe people to get ahead in life? Solomon's point there is not you should bribe people. He's just pointing out, this is the way the world is, right? He wants us to be equipped to understand the life that we live in. And I would see the same dynamic here. Solomon is not saying that there's no moral freight to being oppressed or being oppressor. But what he is noting is, in an ultimate sense, it doesn't matter. Oppressors will die and oppressed will die. And the book of Ecclesiastes is not going to say, so be fatalistic about that. That doesn't matter, that justice doesn't matter. In fact, that's exactly what he is saying here. Justice does matter, and it's a terrible thing to see people oppressed. But in the end, even if you solve the oppression that you might see in the world, people will still die.
Yeah.
There's the ultimate end.
Yeah, and he kind of goes into that too, which is kind of interesting. He repeats this, seeing about this repetition of themes is, better off dead kind of attitude, right? Which is funny because you just say, it's not to be nihilistic. That's not the goal, is to just kind of give up and say it's all futile and whatever. But, even though that he does say that, I think that the part where he kind of is trying to put home here is that, we need to kind of understand these things. And I was thinking of it as, as we're Lutherans, we always like to think of the law as mirror, right? So when we think of the law as mirror, the law is not there just to chastise us and chastise other people, to point out sin. That's one function of it, but it's also a mirror to make us reflect on ourselves. So, I think, the important thing is when he's saying here, maybe we need to be aware of these things that are going on under the sun, even though it's all futile and everything like that. Ultimately, that awareness gives us awareness of ourselves and our awareness of our relationship with God. Because that's always his answer at the end. He says, work, eat, marry, be merry. Well, it's funny. Didn't we talk about that last time?
Where he does
with the Proverbs, where he's like, eat, drink, and be merry is a fool's proverb. And then this one, he's like, eat, drink, and work hard, and be merry in your work.
Yep, that's pretty much it. 3 verse 13, that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in their toil.
Yeah, it's always a funny one for me.
Yeah, because
it's maturity.
It's maturity, and it's the life of the believer. It's to
that's what I mean.
To have everything that the Apostle Paul writes about this. I wish I could remember the exact reference, but that everything that does not come from faith is sin is something that's in the book of Romans, but sort of by the same flip turn of the coin. When we when we have faith and live according to God's will, that's a wide open space for us to live in a way that is pleasing to God. Mm-hmm. It's not like we're locked into a certain set of choices throughout our lives in a very deterministic way. And that thought is something that Solomon comes to later. Go eat and drink with a joyful heart because what you do has already been approved by God, comes up in, I want to say this is chapter 11 of Ecclesiastes.
When I was reading ahead, I do remember reading that, and I love that. And he makes such a great point, and it always stands out to me, and this is my motto. It's in a bit later, but he says he's like, whatever you find to do with your hands, do with your strength.
Yes.
Do it with your might. Because, like you said, that's from God. That's God working through you to achieve his purposes, So I just, it's once you see where we're going with this thing and how we blend it into vocation and stuff, it's just going to blow your mind. Yeah. Hopefully. I don't want to sound too arrogant.
Well, and that I think, that's where Solomon's bridge is into kind of the second portion of the discourse here in chapter 4.
Yeah.
The verses from 4 verse 7, he has this, again I saw, he's observing this thing and he's chewing on it and he's thinking about it, and what he sees is, Ian, you were talking about the man all alone.
Yeah, the man all alone.
The man who, verse 8.
The man and his things.
Yeah. So verse 8 says, there was a man all alone, he had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment as to his meaningless and miserable business? So there's a guy who's just, he's focused on just making money, earning. He's got no son, no brother, he's got no family. He's just earning money.
It sounds like a character from Atlas Shrugged or something like that, or an Ayn Rand novel.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
the objectivist, the philanthropist, or whatever kind of perfect businessman model.
Yeah.
Makes me think of.
Well, who I think of is Ebenezer Scrooge.
Yeah.
This is, Dickens writes about Scrooge as the guy who wouldn't commit to having a family with the girl that he had been courting, and then goes and just becomes this miserable old man who pinches and scrapes every last penny.
He went down to Joppa.
To pull in the Jonah.
He definitely, I see that all over the place now, so I love to just point it out. He was just going against what he was created to do. But I think a more contemporary example, that's a great one too. I thought of Elon Musk immediately because, in the news, they were talking about his $1 trillion pay package to try to keep him at Tesla. So, I think, imagine, you're in this guy has everything, right? He has not just business power, but he's got political power now. He's got unlimited money. Any material thing he wants, any desire can be achieved. He's got a cult personality that worships him on his own platform, he's got everything that you could think of in the material world. But, really, what are you striving for? And ultimately, it comes down to a lot of this, what we're reading here. People want to be remembered. And, what they talk about here in, the fourth verse here, and I saw that all labor and all achievement spring from man's envy of his neighbor. So I was trying to make this connection between envy and wanting a legacy, right? Because envy is kind of I'm going to make all this stuff for myself, but then leaving a legacy, are you actually leaving it for the prosperity of other people? Or are you leaving it so that people will remember you as a great man or a great person?
Yeah. Solomon's comment there.
Yeah.
He says all labor and all achievement. So whose labor and whose achievement is he including?
Mine and yours.
And his own.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm thinking about.
And
right?
he was living that Elon Musk lifestyle the best you could back then. So.
Oh, very much so. And he talked about earlier, chapter 1 in particular, the building projects that he engaged in, or maybe that's chapter 2. It's toward the beginning of the book. But the building projects he engaged in, the gardens that he planted, the
seeking wisdom, my mind guided by wine, right?
Yeah.
He was having a good time.
He says that when he looks at labor and achievement, all of it springs from man's envy of his neighbor. And he's not just looking at the outside, but he's saying, I see that in my heart too, right? He's admitting what I do day by day, I look at and I see, I'm just envious. I just want Solomon to have a bigger, better kingdom than the next kingdom over. You mentioned already the law as a mirror.
Yeah.
Another opportunity for us to ask ourselves, why do we do the things we do day by day? Isn't it fair to often say, I do it because I want to be remembered. I want people to think highly of me. There's somebody out there who I know has been honored and has fame because of all the things that they've done, and I want that, right?
Yeah, keeping up with the Joneses, right? You always got to have the latest stuff. You got to look good. You got to get the clothes. You got to get the thing. You know, when it comes to like hobbies now too, everything's so commodified. You need the right headset. You need the right, computer. You need the right chair, the right car, the right this, the right tools. So whatever, it's kind of that thing where then you got to ask yourself, like, why am I doing it? And, I always would get so hung up on that, really, because, like, I would be like, well, am I doing this because I love God, or am I doing this because I'm selfish? And I think this is a good opportunity to throw in a little Lutheran theology here, where we kind of look at it this way, like, all our works are tainted by sin. Like, because of original sin, even our best works can be mortal sins. Yeah. Without God. So this is where God comes in, and our works are good exactly because it is God stirring within us, the drive, the action to, do the works out of faith, for love for the neighbor. And again, this is not on a grand scale. You're not going to be like Elon Musk say, if you give away $1 trillion to the poor people. This is like being a good family member, being a good coworker, bringing your garbage pail on time, like, keeping your lawn clean, like these simple things. You don't have to be obsessed with this constant drive for wealth. It's right in front of you. Yeah.
And Ian pointed out, again, all our best works, we say are tainted by sin. Lutherans have a phrase, we call it the simul justus et peccator, which is a Latin phrase that means at the same time we are saint and we are sinner. So God, because of Jesus and his work, declares that we are righteous, forgiven, holy in his eyes. And yet, of ourselves, we still wrestle with the sinful nature. To get pointed, on Sundays, when Pastor Tim is up here preaching a sermon, as I do, I should never feel super confidently able to say, I'm doing this purely out of love for other people and the desire to share God's word. Like, there's a part of me that wants to be glorified, that wants to receive honor. Yeah, that wants to receive honor and have people show up and yada yada. That doesn't mean I should stop doing that. Yeah. That doesn't mean I should stop showing up on Sunday and preach a sermon. But I should be aware of that. Like this is something that's meant to provoke humility for us, that we are. We need to be aware of the fact that our deep-seated motivations aren't always transparent to even ourselves, and
I think sometimes like we get too hung up on those things though. And I think when we think about it, try to overthink everything too much. So I try to and this is good because this gives you, like we mentioned before, this gives you kind of like the little formula, and it's simple, right? Eat, drink, work. Yeah. As you find, work in love for the neighbor. When I say other, I mean the neighbor, and that doesn't literally just mean like the person next door to you.
Right.
That means everybody else that is not you is your neighbor. Mm-hmm. And everybody on the planet, the people you hate. The people you love, people you're ambivalent about, is that kind of thing. And then when you're happy with that, that's where joy comes from. And I kind of was thinking of, like, we've been talking about contentment for a while. Be content where God puts you. I think I could call that like a holy contentment. Just being content with your lot. Like, I eat and drink. I enjoy my meals because those are gifts from God, right? Yep. So is our labor, right? So I think finding contentment out of that, and it's easy. It's always these paradoxes and these kind of contradictions that we kind of come across, because from the meaningless springs out that contentment, springs out the meaning, right? But only if you're
only through faith.
Faith in Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So I, a while back, kind of talked about the shift in thought that happens at verse 7, the guy who is all alone. Ian, what you're pointing out, right, all of our good works, anything that we do that we can truly call good, despite, right, we can recognize, yes, I'm a sinner, I remain a sinner, even as God declares me righteous for the sake of Jesus, his son. I wrestle with the sinful nature day by day yet. And yet, the Bible's very clear. Like, we do good as believers. The good that we do is always going to have neighbor as its object in some way. Example of that. For me to just sit down and read my own Bible is something that is beneficial for me, in that it's as beneficial for me as sitting down and eating breakfast is, and just making sure that my body is fed, so also my soul is fed. But to sit down and read my Bible is not what God would think of as a good work in terms of something that he wants me to do out of thanksgiving to him so much, except in the way that it prepares me to love my neighbor.
Yeah.
When I sit down and I read God's word in the mirror that it is, reminding me to take my own sin seriously, in the guide that it is, reminding me how to love my neighbor, right? Then I'm sitting down, and to read my Bible is a good thing, because I'm thinking about, how does this help Tim be a better pastor, father, husband, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, I always find, I love that you said the word how, because that's what it is. It's like almost like a instruction manual. It tells you, guides you what to do. I think guide is a better word, because it leads you, which is another recurring theme throughout the Bible, being the shepherd leading you, being led through the darkness, a lamp, a light to my feet.
Let me lean into that
Sure,
too, right?
Go ahead.
Because there's the song from the 90s, Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth, which is, if you take the first letter of each of those, it's Bible.
Bible?
Bible.
Oh, yeah, that's how you leave Earth.
So maybe,
it's slick.
There you go. And maybe people have heard that one. I don't love, as you pointed out, Ian, maybe a guide. The better word for the Bible than instructions. Or
that's too clinical and cold, sterile.
Instruction manual in particular, I think about the times that I've assembled IKEA furniture.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there kind of puzzling over, like, where's this little flange supposed to go?
Well, sometimes I feel like that with the Bible. I'm puzzling over a passage when you're really doing a good exegesis.
Yeah. But God comes alongside us as we read his word. His Spirit is at work through it. And so it's not so much like sitting there with the IKEA instruction manual trying to sort out these little pictures by yourself. There is someone who comes alongside you as you read the Word of God, who guides you. And that's the Bible does use the word instructions to speak about, like, the words of the Bible itself. But overall, a better metaphor is that of talking about a guide.
So when you're talking about how, like, I was kind of thinking too, like, just to digress a little bit, is we always ask why. I feel like people are always trying to find why. And like you said, the Bible shows you how, and it gives you why. It gives you the answers. But, I feel like this constant, and this goes into, again, with this whole kind of futility and the striving thing, is that, we kind of, especially in the West, we have this, like, with what was the word that we used in Bible study? I just love it. Shallow postmodernist scientism or something. I don't know. But yeah, I always kind of feel like that we're always knowing, like, why? We're always asking why and how. But, it's just like almost this Faustian kind of drive for, like, knowledge and, like, wealth and all that kind of stuff like that. But, like, the one thing that I kind of love, and I always love to bring this back to the cross, and kind of realize that, like, when we look at these things like status and achievement and wealth and success, is that we realize that the cross is the great equalizer for all of us. So now, as the famous Luther's alleged last words were, we're all beggars. Like, the paraphrase, we're all beggars before God. So this means that whether you're a garbage man or you're Elon Musk or even the Pope, we're all equalized by the cross, because even if we have status in this world or we have none, if we're the oppressed or the oppressor, in Jesus Christ, we're all made the same. We all have to beg for mercy before God. So to me, when you're thinking about, what is the meaning in all these things in the world? I mean, it's right there in front of you at the foot of the cross, The lowest and the highest will always stand on equal footing in front of God. So I think for a lot of people that deal with kind of feelings of, being persecuted or, discriminated against, and I don't necessarily mean in like a political sense, I mean just in any way, or feel abandoned or left alone, like not only God has come down to you, but he comes after you, and it makes us all equal. So we don't have to, obsessed so much on this worldly hierarchy that really, ultimately, where does it bring us down? To Sheol, to death, to nothing, right? So as he says later in here, enjoy your wife, enjoy food, enjoy drinking, enjoy your work.
Yeah.
Because when you go to Sheol, which means like the underworld in Hebrew, there's no knowledge, there's no experience, there's none of that stuff there. So it's right here.
Yeah.
Right before you.
As you do that, and this is, I'm thinking now about a section that we haven't really dug into, verses 9 to 12 of this chapter. Like as you're doing that, as you're enjoying life and committing yourself to the work that's placed before you by God, partner up with people.
Yeah.
But that's a strong message here in 9 to 12. Solomon, on the basis of these two things, really, that he's seen, oppression and the man who kind of despairs of his labor, our Scrooge there. Solomon says, it would be better if people partnered.
Yeah.
I think
a cord of three strands.
Yeah. I think that's in reference to his observation about oppression. If you are alone, it's easier for you to be taken advantage of and hurt. If you have others who you can stand with, I don't think this is a political comment, right? Like the reason that we have things like the weekend is unions in this country. Whatever your current thoughts are about unions, you got to recognize like if you enjoy having a Saturday and a Sunday, that's because people linked together.
Oh, what happens if you like a Monday and a Tuesday?
Well,
you got to go to the other union. But yeah, and I think something in society too that I always notice, and I'm guilty of it myself, of course. This is why law is the mirror. You always look at yourself and be like, oh, yeah, okay. But like I feel like people have hard time separating those things. Like they look at something as bad, and then like everything is bad. So like say, even if unions do bad things, and they do good things too. So like in that situation, you could be like, wow, even if I dislike them, they do something good.
Yes.
Like I find that a lot in art and stuff like that. People are like, oh, that guy was a bad guy, but whatever. But kind of to go on your point a little bit, like it is the community, because we are created for a purpose. We are created for the other. So, in the beginning, Adam and Eve, they were created for each other, right? And then everybody that comes after that, we're all created for each other. We're there to help each other, right? Somebody falls down, you need somebody to pick you up. You ever hurt your leg? You ever take care of one of your grandparents, an old person? Ever seen any of that? Try to help them out? It's not easy. You have to do, carrying somebody. I remember having to carry my grandmother into the bathroom many times. Like, I'm not a strong dude by any means, but it's not easy. So imagine doing that yourself. Nobody to help you, right? And then it goes back to the suppression thing, right? A cord of three strands is not quickly broken, as I mentioned before. So you can resist this thing. And what is the community that God gives us, though? Yeah. I think comes to mind, right? Our first is our family. Right? Then our community, right? Our community meaning like our neighborhood, our schools, so where we grow up, our church. Is church community, you think church community is? That might be one of the things I think is kind of lacking in the sense of in the amount of people thinking that it's a community.
Yeah, there's definitely people discount the church community, but then again, people these days, we discount all human community. I'll just get blunt right now. I think AI chatbots are one of the worst things that's happened to society in the last year and a half. Like people just sitting by themselves having conversations, essentially with yourself, because these chatbots are just going to sycophantically.
Yeah, they're designed to basically agree with you and puff you up. And
exactly.
Yeah, it's like having like the most positive life coach possible.
Yeah.
And it's just tell you everything that you want to hear. Wow, you're amazing. You're excellent. You're perfect. Oh, you're so good.
What's the old SNL skit of the guy who looks in the mirror and he's like, I'm great. I'm good. And gosh darn it, people like me. Like that's what talking to the chatbots is. It's this guy talking to himself in the mirror.
I mean, like I'll say that I use it for like when I study and stuff because and I use it actually. I like it that it's kind of framed. I mean, this is a little kind of off topic, but I use it for like when I do the language because I don't know Hebrew and stuff. So like for the Hebrew, I had that first passage 1-4. I had like give me the Hebrew transliteration, literal translation. I had it do, and then the NIV, compare it, and then I could look at any kind of grammatical patterns, word usage. It's good for that. But
it's a great superpowered Google.
Yeah,
it isn't your friend.
But
to just say that for any listener who's out there, like have real friends. Like have someone who, no matter how helpful like ChatGPT or whatever one of these apps is to you, if you lose your job, it can't cook you dinner and have you at the table and just comfort you. It can't do that.
It could probably comfort you and say some nice things, but that's Havel. Vapor.
No, find real friends. Find people who, the things that are being said here in verses 9 to 12. If someone falls down, his friend can help him up. Pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. I would add to that today, like pity the man who falls down and the only person he can tell about having fallen down is ChatGPT. If two lie down together, they will keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? Like ChatGPT won't keep you warm.
Yeah. And just not to rag on ChatGPT too much, I think social media is another way of this because you're removing the like physical presence of somebody in front of you, so you're like more willing to just say something nasty or something that would be offensive on purpose because you don't have it's that separation. So this is the next level. There's nobody replying to you on the side as opposed to you're replying to text. You're not replying to a person. Now you're just replying to something that like I don't even know how they describe it. They say it's like a gray noise that just happens. Or whatever. Maybe it's the devil, the Antichrist.
Yeah. Social media, the better benefit is that maybe hopefully you're actually talking to a real person. Although now, I don't know, within the next couple of years, if half of all Facebook users aren't just ChatGPT robots in disguise who are trying to sell you a product, then I'll give you a buck if you can. If anybody remembers that I made that prediction, I'll give you a buck.
All right. Anyway, do you have any last things that you kind of wanted to point out here? Because we're drawing
close to our time. Yeah.
Thanks, we went a little bit over today, but usually we try to aim for between 30 and 40 minutes around there. But if we have something important to say, we'll go on. If not,
time for a good discussion.
And we're also always open to feedback. So send us an email. What do you think? Any of your ideas? Please.
Yeah. The podcast email is meaningless@graceofgod.church. That's meaningless@graceofgod.church. The last one, I think maybe what I'll do is just a quick comment that can bridge us for next week. Because from 4 verse 13 into chapter 5, there's Solomon moves back out to a focus on the role of the vocation of government is a theme that's going to pop up and dip below the surface and resurface again in chapter 5. The way that government is one of God's most important creations. I think I'll say that to start. God, this is Romans chapter 13, God institutes government for the sake of people's good. It is actually something that God intends to be of benefit to people, that government is meant to bring order, whatever form of government too. Whether you live under a monarch, whether you live in a republic or a democracy or whatever other system is out there.
North Korea?
Sure. The goal that God has in establishing worldly rulers is to benefit people. But Solomon, again, Ecclesiastes and the book of Proverbs are just going to look at life and report the facts of the matter. Government and governors, not specifically in the sense that we use in America of like the head executive of a state, but governors, the people whose role it is to govern, they often abuse that power.
Yeah.
Or they misuse that power, or they are just bad at using that power. Right? There's no malice, it's just simple incompetence, it can be.
Yeah.
And that's a theme that we see in the end here. What would I say is a takeaway for this episode as chapter 5 closes out? Government, there's a flow of thought from those ideas about have friends, have people that you can rely on, into 4 verse 13 that says, better the poor but wise youth than the old but foolish king who no longer knows how to take warning. When you have changes in leadership, and I've been talking about government, but this is true of any human organization, a church, a company, a government. When there's whiplash at the top levels about what direction that organization is headed, what the purpose of that organization is, it can't serve its purpose.
Yeah. Well, you kind of see that now, like it's always fluctuating back between, like the two extremes, back and forth all the time, and then it's like nothing is actually getting accomplished except, maybe these kind of like short, temporary, but destructive pet projects and stuff like that, and then nothing is really done, and it actually makes people think that it's the government that's the fault, instead of, the sinners that are in the government doing all the sinning, not the government itself. So. Right.
And like I said, happens in churches too, right? Maybe you get a new church chairman or a new pastor, and they want to do things differently than have been done previously, and that can cause disruption. It is tough. The thing that we as Christians get to celebrate is that there is actually one ruler over everything, one king, who knows exactly where he wants everything going and will bring about those ends, despite sinful humans' failings and shortcomings. The Lord Jesus Christ, who rules over all things, is directing all human activity toward the end of his return, his visible coronation as the ruler of all things, and our blessed eternity spent with him as members of his kingdom, where we will never be alone, where we will never fall down without someone to pick us up, where we will never be pitiable because we don't have a friend who can aid us.
Yeah, every time you say pity, I was thinking of Mr. T, like, I pity the fool that don't have no friend. Pick him up after he falls. But yeah, anyway, the one thing I got out of it is that, at the end, just for get this, is that nobody is ever happy, man. Because, like, you're going through this whole thing about, like, the poor king comes up. He had such a rough background. Think of, like, when you think of, like, politics and stuff like that. Oh, you want the underdog to win, come out. The old king doesn't know what he's doing. We need the new stuff, the new young people to come in. And then it says right at the end, it was like, oh, there was no end to this, meaning that this is happening again and again. This is nothing new under the sun, right? It's always going there. And then it says right here, there was no end to the people who were before them, but those who came later were not pleased with the successor.
Yep, it's back
So
and
they
forth,
wanted all this change. They got it. It's always that pendulum swing because nobody's ever satisfied. And as he says, this too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. All right.
There we go.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Ecclesiastes chapter 4.
Grace be with you. And next time, we shall see you.
All right. Take care, friends.